For the series, he's 7 for 23. There's another one. Well, the Duke is tearing up the peacock.
Well, hey everybody, Alex here, and today I'm going to do my best to try to explain how much I love this 1950 Bowman Duke Snider card. This card got on the list probably, 8 months ago or so. I was looking through a book and I came across it. The card stood out to me. I said, oh, that's a really cool looking card. And it was in my saved searches on eBay. Whenever the card would pop up, it definitely would get my attention. And to me, that's when you know that it's a card that you really are drawn to. You know, some cards are cool and you appreciate them, but they're not necessarily a card that you ultimately care about long term. But this card just kept coming back into my mind. And what was it? I don't know. I just liked the image, I guess. And obviously I pulled the trigger. Now, I opened it up a couple days ago, and I'm sure what I'm about to describe to you has happened to many of you out there. I was in the middle of my work day, and I had a moment where I had some free time, so I thought, well, I got the card, I'll go ahead and open it up now, and that'll be a nice little break. Wasn't really thinking about it. I opened it up, and I was in the right state of mind, and I was in my card room. I had some good music playing, and man, I just caught myself staring at this card for a good 5 minutes. Just stared at it. I mean, this is Edwin Duke Snider. Taking a look at the back of the card. Hit .292 in 146 games in 1949. First full season as a Dodger regular. His total hits were 161, including 23 homers with 92 runs driven in. Imagine being a Brooklyn fan and pulling this card in 1950. You've got high hopes for this guy. He had a pretty good season last year. He's going to have an even better season in 1950. It's a really cool time to be a baseball fan, a Dodger fan, a Duke Snider fan. And you have this card and your buddies are jealous and they're hoping that they're going to get to pull the card. I mean, you can see all of that in this card. But I think it's also because of the artistry of the card. Every time I look at it, it makes me feel like I'm looking at a panel from a comic book or from a comic strip. I feel like I'm seeing a panel from a story, and I really want to see the other panels. I really want to know what happened at Ebbets Field that day. I feel like there's this bigger story, and this is just one panel from it. So I went digging on the internet, and it took longer than I hoped it would, but I eventually found the original photograph that this card was based on. And the photograph was taken, I think, a year or two earlier. And what's really awesome about this is that you can see the card immediately as soon as you see the photograph. But once you start comparing it to the card, you start to see the differences between the card and the photo and the choices that the artist made when they did the rendering for the baseball card. So I'm going to kind of go through this because it's fun, because I love doing this kind of stuff, and just take a look at how the card changed and just appreciate all the details. Alright, so first of all, when you're kind of looking to the left of Duke and into the dugout, there's all kinds of interesting details. Now looking into the dugout, you can see some stuff on the wall, and It kind of looks like it could be a breaker box, or maybe it's a bullpen phone with a bell on it so that it can be heard around the ballpark. Does anybody know? Has anybody been in the Ebbets Field dugout? That'd be pretty awesome. You can also see in the foreground that there's some kind of a suitcase or a satchel. That's both on the card and in the real life photograph. Now what's kind of cool is you can see something next to the satchel on the card, and the photograph reveals that it's somebody sitting in the dugout with their legs crossed, and it looks like they're either looking at a newspaper or maybe game notes or something. Definitely somebody wearing a suit. So maybe it's somebody from the press, or maybe it's somebody from the managerial team. I mean, this looks to me like it's pre-game. Stands are not full yet. Maybe some batting practice going on. Just to the left of Duke, in the background, you can see somebody standing there by the dugout. He looks to be wearing some kind of an official hat. Maybe he's an usher or something. He's kind of looking down into the dugout, or maybe he's looking at something that's on the side of the dugout wall. Hard to tell. He also has something in front of him. Can't really tell what it is. It's kind of also interesting to note that in the card, they decided to make the dirt around the dugout grass. Much more of a pleasing image. Much more of a baseball image. A little more idealistic, I guess, than the dirt surrounding the dugout. And then looking into the stands just above his bat, you can see that they've only rendered a couple of people into the actual baseball card. So the stands are far less populated in the card than they are in the actual photograph. And I think they probably did that just because they wanted to make sure that the eye was drawn to Duke Snider and not distracted too much by what was going on in the background. Now the other really interesting choice, I think, is that when you look at the photograph, the stands are still visible well past Duke Snider's face. But when you look at the baseball card, it really falls into darkness. And that darkness kind of suggests the overhang of the next deck. And I think, again, they did that probably to make Duke Snider stand out more in the image, but also it made it much easier for the artist because they didn't have to worry about rendering all the different people sitting in the stands. And if you look carefully in those dark areas of the illustration, you can see these little faint spots that are meant to be like the shadows of people kind of disappearing into the darkness of the stands. And it's just so brilliant, so well done. And when you kind of take it apart like this, for me anyway, it brings up my level of appreciation for the effort that the artist went into to make the card stand out the way it does. Bowman was on their game over and over again in the 1950s, in the early 1950s. Boy, they had some really great people working at that company, and I'm just consistently reminded of it when I look at stuff like this. Alright guys, so that, in a nutshell, is the 1950 Bowman Duke Snider, and how I feel about it. And I hope all of you out there are looking at cards right now in your saved searches that you're excited about, because there is nothing more enjoyable in this hobby than pulling the trigger on a card that you could not wait to open. Nothing better. Alright guys, thanks for checking out the video. Take care. Talk to y'all soon.